Emma Thompson pulled her thick winter coat closer to her body. She walked down the quiet streets of Manchester. The cold December wind made her cheeks red, and her breath came out like small white clouds. Snow was starting to fall from the dark sky above, covering the empty sidewalks with a thin white layer. Emma was tired after working late at the community center where she helped families in need. At 28 years old, she had been doing this job for 5 years. Every day she saw people struggling with different problems, but she never got used to seeing others in pain. Her heart always felt heavy when she walked home after difficult days like this one. The street lights made yellow circles on the snowy ground as Emma walked past the closed shops. Most people were already home, sitting by warm fires with their families. Emma looked forward to reaching her small apartment where she could make a hot cup of tea and rest her tired feet. That was when something made her stop walking. In the doorway of an old bookshop, she saw a small figure sitting on the cold concrete steps. As Emma got closer, she realized it was a young boy. He looked very small and thin, probably no older than 8 years old. He was wearing only a light jacket that was too big for him, and his whole body was shaking from the cold. The boy had dark hair and big brown eyes that looked up at Emma when he heard her footsteps. His eyes showed fear, like a scared animal, but also a tiny bit of hope. Emma felt her stomach tighten with worry. She looked at this child sitting alone in the freezing night. Emma walked slowly toward the boy, not wanting to frighten him. She knelt down on the cold sidewalk so her face was at the same level as his. Her voice was soft and gentle when she spoke. "Hello there, sweetheart. What are you doing out here all by yourself?" The boy looked at Emma for a long moment before answering. When he spoke, his English was broken and difficult to understand. But Emma could hear that he was trying his best. "My name is David," he said in a quiet voice. "I am from Syria. I come here with my family, but we got separated. I do not know where they are." Emma felt her heart break into pieces as she listened to David's story. He told her that his family had come to England 3 weeks ago, looking for safety from the war in their home country. During the process of registering with the authorities, David had become separated from his parents and his little sister. He had been too scared to ask anyone for help because he did not speak English well and was afraid of getting in trouble. "I have been sleeping in doorways for 3 days," David whispered. "I am very cold and very hungry." Emma looked at this brave little boy and felt tears forming in her eyes. She could not imagine how frightened and alone he must feel, without thinking about it for even 1 second. Emma made a decision that would change everything. "David, would you like to come home with me tonight? I have a warm apartment with hot soup and a comfortable place to sleep." David's eyes grew wide with surprise. For a moment, Emma was worried that he might say no because he did not trust her yet. But then she saw tears of relief start to fall down his cheeks as he nodded his head up and down. Emma helped David stand up from the cold steps. His legs were shaky and weak from sitting in the cold for so long. She put her arm round his thin shoulders and walked with him toward her apartment building 6 blocks away. Emma's apartment was small and simple, but it was clean and warm. She turned on all the lights to make David feel safe and comfortable. The first thing she did was run a hot bath for him while she heated up some chicken soup on the stove. After David had cleaned up and put on some warm clothes that Emma found for him, they sat together at her small kitchen table. Emma watched as David ate bowl after bowl of soup. He was so hungry that he could barely speak between bites. Emma kept bringing him more food: bread with butter, a banana, and a glass of warm milk. When David finished eating, Emma made a bed for him on her comfortable sofa. She gave him her softest blankets and her extra pillow. As she tucked the covers round him, David looked up at her with grateful eyes. "Thank you, Emma," he said quietly. "You are very kind to me." Emma smiled and brushed his dark hair away from his forehead. "You are safe now. David, try to get some sleep." As Emma sat in her bedroom that night, she could hear David sleeping peacefully in the living room, for the first time in days. He was not cold or hungry or afraid. Looking at this brave little boy who had survived so much, Emma felt something change deep inside her heart. She made a promise to herself and to David that night. She would not let him go back to living on the streets. Somehow, some way, she would find a solution. She would give this child the safe and loving home that every child deserved to have. The first morning after David came to live with Emma was very quiet. Emma woke up early and found David sitting on the sofa, still wearing the clothes she had given him the night before. He was staring out the window at the busy street below, but his eyes looked far away, as if he was thinking about something else. Emma made breakfast for both of them: scrambled eggs, toast, and orange juice. David ate very slowly and did not talk much. Emma tried to start conversations with him, asking simple questions about what he liked to eat or what colors he preferred. David would answer with just one or two words, always looking down at his plate. Emma understood that David needed time to feel safe. She had worked with many children who had experienced difficult things, and she knew that trust takes time to build. Every morning, Emma would speak to David in a gentle voice, using simple English words that he could understand easily. She smiled at him often, even when he did not smile back. After a week, Emma took David to register at the local primary school. The headmaster, Mrs. Wilson, was a kind woman who had experience with children from other countries. She showed David round the school and introduced him to his new teacher, Miss Roberts. David held tightly to Emma's hand during the entire visit, afraid to let go. On David's first day of school, Emma walked with him to the classroom door. She could see that he was nervous because his hands were shaking. Emma knelt down and looked into his eyes. "You are brave and smart, David. I will be here to pick you up when school ends, I promise." David nodded but did not speak. Emma watched through the window as he sat quietly at his desk, not talking to the other children. Her heart felt heavy with worry, but she knew this was an important step for David to make friends and learn English better. Every evening, Emma would sit at the kitchen table with David to help him with his homework. Math was easier for him because numbers were the same in every language, but reading and writing in English was very difficult. Emma would point to pictures in his books and say the English words slowly. David would repeat the words after her, trying hard to get the sounds right. Some nights, David would wake up screaming from bad dreams. Emma would hear him from her bedroom and rush to his side. She would find him sitting up on the sofa, his face wet with tears and his whole body shaking with fear. Emma learned not to ask questions about these nightmares. Instead, she would sit beside him and read storybooks in a soft, calm voice until he fell asleep again. After 2 months of living together, something special happened. David was sitting at the kitchen table, coloring in a book that his teacher had given him. He was drawing a picture of a house with a big red door and flowers in the garden. Emma was washing dishes at the sink when she heard David speak. "Emma," he said quietly, still looking down at his coloring book, "why you help me? Why you take care of me when I am not your real son?" Emma stopped washing the dishes and turned around. She saw that David was looking at her with curious eyes, waiting for an answer. Emma dried her hands on a towel and sat down at the table beside him. "David, every person in this world deserves to feel loved and safe. It does not matter where you come from or what language you speak. You are a wonderful boy, and you deserve to have someone who cares about you. You are not alone anymore. David thought about Emma's words for a long time. Then he smiled, the first real smile Emma had seen from him since the night she found him on the street. As the months passed, David began to change. He started talking more at dinner time, telling Emma about his day at school and the new English words he had learned. He made friends with a boy named Tom who sat next to him in class. Sometimes Tom would come over to play, and Emma would hear them laughing together in the living room. One day in spring, David surprised Emma by calling her something new. He was helping her make sandwiches for his school lunch when he looked up at her and said, "Thank you, Mum Emma." Emma felt her eyes fill with happy tears. The word Mum sounded so natural when David said it, like he had been calling her that his whole life. Emma worked extra hours at the community center to pay for David's school supplies and new clothes. As he grew bigger, she never complained about being tired or having less money for herself. Seeing David happy and learning new things every day made all the hard work worth it. Their small apartment became filled with David's artwork and school projects. Emma put every drawing and every good test paper on the refrigerator door. She was proud of everything David accomplished, no matter how small. When David's 9th birthday came in November, Emma planned a special celebration. She bought balloons, made a chocolate cake, and invited Tom and his mother to join them. David had never had a real birthday party before, and his face glowed with happiness as everyone sang happy birthday to him. As David blew out the -1 candle on his cake, Emma asked him what he had wished for. David looked at Emma with love in his eyes and said, "I wished to make you proud of me, Mum Emma. And I wished that someday I can help other children who are scared and alone. Just like you helped me," Emma hugged David tightly, tears of joy running down her cheeks. This little boy who had lost everything still wanted to help others. She knew then that David would grow up to be someone very special. 5 years had passed since that cold December night when Emma first brought David home. The scared little 8-year-old boy had grown into a confident 13-year-old who spoke perfect English and earned top marks in all his classes. David was now taller than Emma's shoulders, and his voice was starting to change as he grew into a young man at school. David was known as one of the smartest students in his year. His mathematics teacher, Mr. Brown, often said that David could solve problems that even older students found difficult. David loved geometry most of all, drawing perfect circles and triangles with his compass and ruler. He would spend hours working on math problems, his face focused and serious as he calculated the answers. David also discovered that he had a natural talent for art and design. In his art class, he would draw detailed pictures of buildings and houses. His drawings were so good that his art teacher, Miss Green, displayed them on the classroom wall for everyone to see. Other students would gather round David's desk to watch him work, amazed by how realistic his pictures looked. Emma felt proud every time she attended parent meetings at David's school. All of his teachers had wonderful things to say about him. They told Emma that David was polite, hard-working, and always willing to help other students who were struggling with their lessons. David had also made many good friends who invited him to birthday parties and football games on weekends. But while David was thriving at school, Emma was facing bigger and bigger problems at home. The cost of raising a growing teenager was much higher than she had expected. David needed new clothes every few months because he was getting taller so quickly. His school books, supplies, and lunch money added up to more money than Emma could easily afford to pay for everything David needed. Emma took on to extra part-time jobs in addition to her work at the community center. 3 mornings a week, she cleaned offices before most people arrived at work on weekends. She worked at a local grocery store, stocking shelves and helping customers. Emma would leave the apartment early in the morning and often did not return home until late at night. The small apartment that had once seemed cozy now showed signs of wear and problems that Emma could not afford to fix. The heating system worked poorly, making the rooms cold during winter months. The kitchen sink leaked water that dripped constantly into a bucket Emma placed underneath. The carpet in the living room was old and stained, and some of the windows had cracks that let in cold air. Emma tried her best to hide her money worries from David. She did not want him to feel guilty or responsible for their financial problems. When David asked why she looked so tired, Emma would smile and say she was fine. When the electricity bill was higher than usual, Emma would tell David it was normal and nothing to worry about. But David was a smart and observant young man. He noticed that Emma often skipped meals, saying she was not hungry when really she was trying to save money. He saw how she looked worried when she paid the rent each month, counting and recounting the money in her purse. David also noticed that Emma's clothes were getting old and worn, but she never bought anything new for herself. One evening in March, David was sitting at the kitchen table doing his homework when he looked up at Emma. She had just come home from her third job of the day and was heating up leftover soup for dinner. Her face looked tired and her shoulders were bent with exhaustion. "Mum, Emma," David said carefully, "you work too much. You do not have to do 3 jobs just for me. I am old enough to get a paper delivery job after school. I can help pay for things." Emma stopped stirring the soup and turned to look at David. She walked over to him and gently touched his hair, the way she had done when he was a small boy. "David, your only job right now is to study hard and enjoy being young. I am perfectly fine working these jobs. Do not worry about money. That is my responsibility, not yours." But David was not convinced by Emma's words. He could see the worry lines round her eyes and the way her hands shook from being so tired. All the time, that night, after Emma went to bed, David made a decision. He would find a way to help their family, even if Emma did not want him to worry about money. David started spending his free time drawing pictures of houses and buildings. But these were not just regular drawings for his art class. These were detailed plans for beautiful homes with large windows that let in lots of sunshine, gardens where children could play safely, and strong walls that would keep families warm and protected. When Emma saw David's new drawings spread across his desk, she asked him what they were for. David looked up at her with bright, determined eyes. "These are my dreams, Mum Emma. Someday, I want to become an architect and build houses where families can be happy and feel safe. Just like you made our home a safe place for me when I had nowhere else to go." Emma felt tears come to her eyes as she looked at David's beautiful drawings. Even though their life was difficult and money was tight, this remarkable young man still dreamed of helping other people. He had not let hardship make him bitter or selfish. Instead, David wanted to use his talents to make the world a better place for other families. 3 years later, when David turned 16, a letter arrived that changed everything. David had been accepted to study architecture and engineering at the University of Manchester, and they were offering him a full scholarship that would pay for all his classes and books. Emma cried tears of pure joy as she hugged David tightly. All those years of hard work and sacrifice had been worth it to see this moment. The morning of David's departure to university was filled with both excitement and sadness. Emma helped David pack his suitcase with clothes, books, and a few special items from home. She included the first drawing he had ever made for her, a picture of the two of them holding hands in front of their apartment building. David was now 18 years old, tall and handsome, but Emma could still see traces of the frightened little boy she had found on the street 10 years ago at Manchester train station. Emma and David stood together on the busy platform waiting for the train to London. Other families were saying goodbye to their children too, and the air was filled with tears and laughter. Emma tried to be strong and cheerful, but her heart felt heavy knowing that David would be living so far away. When the train arrived, David hugged Emma tightly for a long time. He whispered in her ear, "Thank you for everything. Mum, Emma, I will make you proud, I promise." Emma watched through her tears as David found his seat by the window. As the train slowly pulled away from the station, David waved at her until she could no longer see his face. Emma stood on the empty platform for several minutes after the train disappeared, feeling more alone than she had felt in many years. The walk back to their apartment felt longer than usual. When Emma opened the front door, the silence hit her like a physical blow. David's voice was not there to greet her. His backpack was not thrown carelessly by the door. His shoes were not scattered in the hallway. The apartment felt cold and empty without David's energy and laughter filling the rooms. Emma sat on the sofa where David used to do his homework and looked round at the spaces that reminded her of him. His bedroom door was closed, but Emma knew that inside everything was neat and organized, just the way David always kept it, on the refrigerator. His old school pictures and drawings were still displayed, now looking like memories from a different lifetime. That first night without David was the hardest. Emma cooked dinner for 2 people out of habit, then realized she only needed to make food for herself. She ate in silence, missing David's stories about his day and his plans for the future. The apartment felt too quiet, and Emma found herself turning on the television just to hear human voices. In London, David was experiencing his own challenges. His university dormitory room was small and shared with a roommate named James from Liverpool. James was friendly and outgoing, but David felt homesick and worried about Emma. Every evening at exactly 7 o'clock, David would call Emma from the phone in the hallway of his dormitory building. "How was your first day of classes?" Emma would ask, trying to sound excited and interested. "It was good. Mum, Emma, the professors seem very smart, and I think I will learn a lot here." "How was your day at work?" "Oh, the same as always. Everything is fine here. Do not worry about me." But David could hear something different in Emma's voice. She sounded tired and lonely, even though she tried to hide it. During one phone call in October, David asked Emma about the problems with their apartment that had been getting worse over the years. "How are the repairs going on the flat? Did you get the heating fixed before winter comes?" Emma paused before answering. She did not want David to know that she still could not afford to fix the heating system or the leaking roof. The problems were getting worse, but Emma was spending all her money on food and bills, with nothing left over for repairs. "Oh, you know how these things go, David. I am working on it slowly. Do not worry about the apartment. Just focus on your studies." David knew Emma was not telling him the whole truth. He worried about her constantly, imagining her sitting alone in their cold apartment with buckets catching water from the leaking ceiling. David decided he needed to do something to help. Even though he was just a student with very little money, David started looking for part-time work. In London, between his classes, he found a job washing dishes at a restaurant near the university. He also worked weekends helping an older man named Mr. Peterson with his gardening business. David saved every penny he earned, spending money only on the cheapest food and necessary school supplies. David's roommate James often invited him to go to movies or eat at restaurants with other students. But David always said no. James noticed that David wore the same few shirts and never bought anything for himself that was not absolutely necessary. "David, you work harder than anyone I know," James said one evening. "Why do not you treat yourself once in a while? You have not bought a single thing for fun since we started university." David looked up from the architecture book he was reading and smiled at James. "I have something much more important to save my money for. Someday you will understand." James was curious about David's mysterious savings plan. But David never explained what he was working toward in his final year of university. David had an idea that would change everything. He teamed up with two classmates, Michael and Sarah, to start a small construction company. They called it New Foundations and began taking on small jobs like painting rooms and fixing broken stairs. In old houses, David's natural talent for design and his careful attention to detail quickly made their small company popular with customers. People loved the beautiful and affordable work they did, and soon New Foundations had more job requests than the 3 students could handle every night before going to sleep. David would look at the framed photograph of Emma that sat on his desk. In the picture, Emma was smiling and hugging him on his 16th birthday. David would think about everything Emma had sacrificed for him and all the love she had given him when he needed it most. Now it was David's turn to give something back to the woman who had saved his life. Emma woke up on her 36th birthday feeling both happy and a little sad. It was the first birthday she would celebrate without David living at home. Since he had graduated from university 2 months ago and was now working in London, she had received a beautiful birthday card from him in the mail, but she missed having him there to share breakfast and laugh with her on her special day. Emma was getting ready for work when her phone rang. She smiled when she saw David's name on the screen, expecting him to call and wish her happy birthday like he did every morning. "Good morning, Mum Emma. Happy birthday." David's voice sounded excited and a little mysterious. "Thank you, sweetheart. I was hoping you would call. How are things going with your new job?" "Everything is wonderful, but I have something special planned for your birthday. Can you meet me at 15 Rosewood Street this afternoon at 2 o'clock? I have a surprise for you." Emma felt curious about David's request. Rosewood Street was in a nice neighborhood about 15 minutes from her apartment. But she had never been to that particular address before. "David, what kind of surprise requires me to meet you at a stranger address? Are you back in Manchester? I thought you were working in London this week. Just trust me. Mum Emma, please meet me there at 2 o'clock. You are going to love this surprise, I promise." Emma agreed to meet David, though she spent the rest of the morning wondering what he could possibly have planned. After finishing her work at the community center, Emma took the bus to Rosewood Street, looking at the house numbers until she found number 15. When Emma arrived at the address David had given her, she stopped walking and stared in amazement. In front of her was the most beautiful small house she had ever seen. It had bright white walls, a cheerful red front door, and a lovely garden filled with colorful flowers. The windows were large and clean, and there was a small porch with 2 comfortable-looking chairs. David was standing in front of the house, wearing his best suit and holding something behind his back. When he saw Emma approaching, his face lit up with the biggest smile she had seen since he was a little boy. "David, this house is absolutely beautiful," Emma said as she walked up to him. "But I do not understand. Whose house is this? Why did you ask me to meet you here?" David's eyes were shining with tears of joy as he brought his hands forward to show Emma what he had been hiding. In his palm was a set of silver house keys attached to a keychain that read "Home, Sweet Home, Mum." "Emma," David said, his voice shaking with emotion, "this house belongs to you. Happy birthday." Emma looked at David with complete confusion. She was sure she had not heard him correctly. "What do you mean, David?" "I do not understand what you are saying. I bought this house for you, Mum Emma. I have been saving every penny I earned for the past 3 years, and my construction company has been doing very well. This is your new home." Emma felt her legs become weak with shock. She sat down on the front steps of the house, unable to believe what David was telling her. David sat down beside her and took her hand in his. "David, this is impossible. Houses cost so much money. How could you afford to buy a house? You just graduated from university." David smiled and began to explain his plan. "Do you remember my construction company that I started with Michael and Sarah? We have been very successful, and I have been saving every penny I earned. I also got a very good job with an architecture firm in London, and they gave me a signing bonus. But most importantly, I designed and renovated this house myself, which saved a lot of money." David stood up and helped Emma to her feet. "Come inside and let me show you your new home." David opened the red front door and led Emma into the most wonderful house she had ever seen. The living room was bright and cozy, with large windows that let in lots of natural light. There was a comfortable sofa and a fireplace that would keep the room warm during cold winter months. The kitchen was Emma's favorite room. It was bigger than her entire apartment, with modern appliances and lots of counter space for cooking the meals she loved to make. There was even a small table by the window where she could sit and drink her morning tea while looking out at the garden. David showed Emma the 2 bedrooms, each with plenty of space and large closets. The bathroom had a bathtub where Emma could relax after long days at work. But the most amazing part of the house was the back garden, filled with rose bushes, vegetable plants, and a small apple tree. "David, I cannot accept this," Emma said, though her eyes were filled with tears of joy. "This is too much. You should save your money for your own future." David took both of Emma's hands and looked directly into her eyes. "Mum Emma, do you remember that cold night 10 years ago when you found me sitting alone in a doorway? I was scared, hungry, and had nowhere to go. You took me home and gave me everything: love, safety, education, and hope for the future." Emma nodded, remembering that first night when David came into her life. "You saved my life. Mum Emma, you worked 3 jobs to pay for my school supplies. You went without meals to make sure I had enough to eat. You gave up your dream so that I could achieve mine. This house is not just a birthday gift. It is my way of saying thank you for everything you have done for me." As David finished speaking, Emma heard voices coming from the front yard. She looked out the window and saw people walking toward the house, carrying balloons and wrapped presents. Who are all these people? David. David grinned and opened the front door. Emma saw faces she recognized. Other children she had helped over the years, friends from the community center, David's university friends, and neighbors from their old apartment building. Everyone was smiling and calling out happy birthday. As Emma stood in the doorway of her beautiful new home, surrounded by all the people who loved her, she finally understood what David had been trying to tell her. The scared little refugee boy she had rescued from the streets had grown into a successful young man who understood the true meaning of family and gratitude. Emma hugged David tightly, tears of happiness streaming down her face. "I love you so much. My dear son, I love you too. Mum Emma, welcome to your new home." The end.